Not going to touch it. Well, here, air cheers.
Cheers.
To a successful 2022-ish. What's up, boys and girls?
Good evening. Happy New Year.
Good evening.
Although it's not a Happy New Year.
Why?
Because one of the first pieces of news that I heard in 2023 was Ken Block.
Oh, it's awful.
It is awful.
Tomorrow's never promised.
Yep.
Don't take it for granted.
Yep. But that's sad.
The big topic on tonight's agenda is we're going to talk about Project S2000 at Lime Rock, the recap here. Now that I've had some time to really let my thoughts settle and stew in about what this car was and where it's at now.
Yep. So go ahead, Quinn. Kick us off. What was with all the changes, what was your immediate reaction?
This car is much different. And I have to, before we get into this though, I got to say something.
What do you got to say?
Say something.
You're going to talk about the NB Miata, I think.
I am. So there was two cars that I sweated and wanted more than anything as a young buck for years. I mean, when I say obsession, I would stare at pictures of them on my phone. I had thousands of pictures of these cars on my phone. It was the FDRX7 and the S2000. But I was too broke, Dick, to afford any of them. So I bought two Miatas instead, and turboed one and all-motored the other one. Anyhow, now owning an S2000. Well, this is the second time out now we've tested this car. It got substantially faster on track. But I don't care about that so much. What was most important to me was more how well it behaved on track. And I think that was the biggest takeaway from this most recent testing session. So the first Lime Rock slip angle episode did we ever test this on the small track? I think we did.
We did test it on the small track
so
once.
This is the third time we've tested this car.
That was the last test we did before they changed it and became the FCP Euro grounds.
And they made the track bigger.
Yep.
So we tested it it was a year and a half ago now. It was right before we started doing the engine mods from Belade. So it already had my all-motor setup on it, the original one, which was 222 at the wheels. Had some Tane monosport coilovers, which I think the valving on those were decent, I guess, for a modern Tane. I kind of lost a lot of love for them with all the cost-cutting stuff that they've been doing. And it was just aligned.
Yep. And you had extreme contact DWs on your RG2s, right?
Correct. So it was definitely lacking in the tire department, but I was more interested in just handling feel.
Yeah, exactly. Balance.
Right, because here's my gripe with the S2000 is that at the limit, it's edgy. And not edgy in a sense that I can't manage it, right? I've really learned to master the S2000. Totaled my very first one eons ago. But I say to people, if you can drive an S2000 at the limit, you can drive just about anything. Because
you're busy. You're busy behind the wheel.
You're busy behind the wheel, so you have to be quick to catch it when it snaps. You have to have your inputs controlled on the correction because it's easy to just snap it around on a correction and send it into a wall. So I don't want that from a car that I want to have fun with, because the premise of the S2000, it has all the other fundamentals, everything that you would want. It has that engine, has that amazing gearbox. It's relatively lightweight. It looks cool for a roadster, right? I feel like the S2000 is a little bit more respected.
Oh, yeah.
It's a cool looking car. It really encompasses that kind of raw driving experience. It's one of the last hardcore raw cars that was ever produced. My 03 last 9,000 RPM engine one, last of the AP1s. There's no anything in this car other than ABS. It still has a cable throttle. They ran cable throttles up until 2005. 2006 was the changeover. They got traction control and electronic throttle in conjunction with the ABS. So 06 to 09, the end of the production was a little bit more modernized, but
it's a factory race car.
Yeah, literally, it's a factory race car. There wasn't any at those years. I can't think of any hardcore sports car that was close to this. You could maybe call a 350Z. They were close, but they had a lot of weird.
They had
electronic throttles. They had dumb stuff with them too.
Yeah, they weren't so raw and visceral like this.
It's just a different car.
Yeah, I mean the 911 GT3, I would say, is probably
But that had electronic throttle and
Yeah.
all that other complicated stuff in it.
But just that naturally aspirated, high revving, like raw, visceral sports, like race car for the street.
Yeah. So it had all the great fundamentals, but like that was like kind of the big hang up, is because if you're trying to just enjoy the car and do like knucklehead things in it and like stretch its legs, let the chassis move around, you are saw monkey fest behind the wheel. And like, and ultimately what that translates to is that you can't really drive it at an angle that you wanted to drive it at. And that's really to me, that's the hallmark of a true driver's car, right? I think a true driver's car, yes, it produces that heroic grip. It can produce the lap time. It's quick on track in the hands of a good driver, right? It's a little bit dangerous, right? Driver's car should be a little bit dangerous. And that's only in the sense that like it will rotate. When it's not an understeer fest, right? A lot of cars are set up with understeer so people don't crash them, but like a true driver's car is something that is capable of oversteering, and then you can pick the angle that you want to go into the corner with. So I couldn't do that as much. And you remember like when we tried filming the drifty shots in the very first one I guess it'd be the second one on the skid pad.
Yeah.
Like literally
it was tough, yeah.
Going out like, first car of the day cold, but like I spun, I don't know, 2 or 3 times almost immediately.
Yeah.
Trying to like maintain a slide, because that's just how edgy and like busy you are behind the wheel, like trying to balance it, right? And like I would use the RX-8 as like a comparison, because the RX-8 is like a very graceful, balanced car.
Oh, it's super easy.
Yeah, I get out there and just like, it's like a swan.
I had never really even driven a car like that, and I remember you let me drive the RX-8 once on that little track, and like yeah, I spun it a couple of times because it was like one of the first times I've ever really tried driving like that, but I was able to get it to hold slides easily, like first time.
Yeah, I mean, it's with that alignment on there, it's set up to be more of a driver's car now. But it has that like very beautiful gracefulness to it. You don't have that edginess. I think that's one of the best things about the RX-8, is because it really blends that world of like S2000, double RX-7, FD-RX-7, like double A-arm pointing, right, turning, that like sharp turning, but where you don't have that double A-arm edginess at the limit when you lose traction in the rear. The long wheelbase of it.
Yeah, it doesn't have that problem with the toe issues when you under compression.
Yeah, well, so that's we'll talk about that in a second. But that's really the biggest Achilles heel with the S2000. But I'll say like the FD-RX-7, right? It's still an inherent nature of a double A-arm car. Because they're springy. The arms have spring in them, right? So when they're compressed and you're loading up that suspension in the cornering, as soon as you lose traction, right, you're essentially losing contact patch.
Yeah,
the springs like kind of push it out, and like it gives it that snappiness to it, right? In the FD-RX-7, Mazda tried to dial some of that out by putting those pillow ball bushings in the rear arms. So when you do load up the suspension, it takes out some of that load, that spring. But it's still, plenty of people have crashed FDs. FD's like a more refined Miata, if that's even possible, really. Like
older wheelbase, yeah.
Yeah, you got a little bit more wheelbase, and having those pillow ball bushings meant it wasn't as edgy when it lost traction, or snappy, I should say, right?
Yeah.
So going back to the S2000, the mods were the Blade sports engine stuff, and all we did was their exhaust manifold, new cams, and their adjustable timing gear. And the biggest hallmark from that was the adjustable timing gear, because me milling my head and running that spoon head gasket, even though I raised compression almost a point, so it's close to 12 to 1, it retards the cam timing, and I was giving up massive amounts of power. So the Blade gear, I pretty much maxed that thing out. It's 3 degrees advanced, but it accounts for what I lost by doing the thinner head gasket and the shave. So corrected that.
Did you do a base run before you shaved the head?
No.
The dyno? No. So you probably canceled out the advantage, the extra compression was probably canceled.
It's arguable. You're right. It's absolutely plausible that like I did. I just didn't, 27, it's total 27 thousandths off, right?
Yeah.
The head gasket's 15 thousandths thinner.
Yep.
And I shaved 12 thousandths off of the head. Like,
I'm just curious, like, sorry.
No. You're absolutely right. Like, that's one thing that you have to account for. With my ITB Miata, I have adjustable cam gears. It's not a big deal. Just dial it back. And we tune those cam gears anywhere. An S2000, like doing an adjustable cam gear setup is not as easy because it's all
one
oil.
gear, and it's one gear that runs both cams.
Well,
right?
you can get adjustable cam gears for the S2000. Yeah. It's still the same premise, but it's a sealed cam system.
So you have to take the valve cover off while you're on the dyno, and you want to make it.
Dude, when you're talking making cam gear adjustments on a dyno, I mean, you are making and you're tuning too. So it's a cam gear adjustment, pull, tune, tune, and then, okay, did it do anything or did it make better or worse? So it's tedious. You're not doing that maybe somebody, I'm not doing that. Let's put that out there.
So come up with some kind of like removable cap for the front of the valve cover.
So anyways, so we saw great gains, and a lot of it was in the low and mid-range. Mm-hmm. The car literally feels like it got a bigger engine in it.
What was the biggest jump in power in the mid-range? Wasn't it like 40 horsepower?
I always screw that. I say like 30, but we're screwing it up. It was like 26, I think, down low.
Yeah. Which, for a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine, that's huge.
And it was like, I want to say it was like 20 or 19 pound-feet down low.
Yeah.
Peak, but it gained peak too. It was 15 peak and 10 more torque peak. Mm-hmm. So 238 wheel and 258 torque, up from 222 horsepower and 148 torque. But the car is just faster everywhere. Like I was going to shorten the gearing on it, do a different final drive. I'm not doing that anymore. Yep. And I have an AP1 gearbox still, which has the shorter sixth. And like highway, 80 mile an hour highway cruise is kind of like annoying. So I didn't want to ruin that.
There's a lot of harmonics in the engines, aren't they?
It's a smooth four-cylinder, right? But it's just one of those things. Like I don't feel any real reason to do that now.
Yeah.
So there's that, and then we did all the suspension stuff, and that was the more recent series, and that was the coilovers. Oh my God!
Extended ball joints.
Extended ball joints in the rear, which give the shock more travel.
Yep. The
knuckle extenders.
Yeah.
Correct the geometry when it's lowered. Oh yeah, and give more camber in the front. We did all their spherical bushings. That was the big change. Mm-hmm. Their big brake kit. It's got Hawk HP Plus pads now.
And you did a steering rack spacer too.
Steering rack spacer, which I never put that on. New transmission mounts because mine were torn. Yeah. I'm sure there was something else small. Oh, the Megan Racing toe.
Oh yeah, the toe links. Yeah.
And that gets out that gets rid of the toe in.
Yep.
So here's the big takeaway, is that this is the first car that I've driven that's not an RX-8 that felt very close to an RX-8, but with a shorter gearbox. And I almost it didn't really click until after the video, and especially when we were watching it in the post. And the big tell is when you go around the skid pad, and when you want me to do a big slide, is that I can hang the car right out to the outer edge. And I'm not a pro drifter by any means here, right? But I'm almost linking it on the transition to go around that little sharp track. And I would say this: if there was more track width, and you could be more of a yabone there, I would be more brazen. But it's because it's not. It's a very, very narrow strip of tarmac that you have to correct that slide and
really
catch
is.
it in
They
there.
narrowed it quite a bit.
Oh my God, it's so tight there. So trying to keep it nice and tidy in there. So if you're just watching strictly my steering input, you're going to be like, yeah, okay, whatever, right? It's not that, it's like a kind of a pause and then you're transitioning into the sliding in the opposite direction. But if you saw how small that section of the strip is, and the fact that this is not set up as a drift car, right? It's still set up to grip for the most part. That's really a good tell right there. Is it still a little bit sharp on the steering? Yeah.
It looked like it, yeah.
You got to be quick and correct.
You're on the wheel, you're busy.
But that's what I like about cars like that is you really feel like you are driving that car.
Mm-hmm. Your heart's probably pumping by the time when you pull it off track.
Oh, it gets you. I'm out of breath.
Yeah.
And it's fun. That's because I'm not trying to win races. The S2000 is going to get spanked by any modern car that's decently set up now.
Yeah, there's always those ZL1 1LE Camaros and stuff like that always are super fast, but
But it's what does it matter?
Yeah,
We're not racing in some spec series that it matters. It's really just I want a car that's enjoyable. That to me, it's the experience that I'm after, right? I did the lap time things. That just becomes work because then you also got to work on yourself and you got to drive all the time. And it's
And if you don't end up like, a few tenths faster, it's like you just ruined.
You're disappointed.
Like, you're just pissed. Yeah.
You're disappointed in yourself, and it takes the fun out of driving because it's like becomes work. You're so focused and you're doing it all the time, and then you don't appreciate it as much because you're doing it all the time. But like when you do it every once in a while, and you do it in something that has like that real visceral, exciting experience, like it makes a huge world of difference. So I will say this: I've driven a lot of things. I haven't driven all the newest stuff, and I know it's fast, so let's take the speed thing out of the equation. But for like a mechanical, like if you're like, hey, you get to go do a track day tomorrow, what's the car that you want to take? I wouldn't take my FD. Even if you told me my FD is like not going to melt, and I'm not going to have a single issue with it, and it's going to be reliable and everything else, that wouldn't be the car that I would pick for most small to medium tracks. I would take the S2000 because I just think it's so much more fun.
I agree.
It just feels at home. You're like, the engine is screaming, and like that power level on a racetrack, like when we were at Thompson with it at 222 horsepower.
Oh, it's plenty.
It's fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fast.
Yep.
Especially like if you don't do track day stuff all the time, right? Like when every time I get back out on track, a big track, after a while, like I have to like get back up to speed.
I mean, you also like, that's one of the nice things about not having like slicks like all the time, like not this like crazy amount of grip all the time. Like you become a better driver because you're on the edge all the time of grip, and it just makes it a better experience, I think.
Really grippy tires will hide bad tendencies in the suspension.
Well, that's how all new cars are. They handle well because of compound.
Yeah, and it's like an awesome example of that. Go drive a Corvette Z06, a C5 or a C5 or C6. I mean even the C7 I thought was like, you could put down a fast lap time with it.
Yeah, well, with 335 tires.
But as soon as you start to like try to slide that thing,
yeah,
you're right. It's the sledgehammer effect, right? It's literally just big engine, big tires. But like as soon as you try to like dance with, I know it sounds like lame and cheesy, but like as soon as you try to like dance with that car and like hoon it around, it's like fuck you.
I don't think there's a lot of people that go for this kind of thing. Like you see,
Probably
there's
not.
like drifters, which I
get
can
it.
I could see that being a lot of fun too. That's kind of like start doing tandem drifting and stuff like that. But I like keeping cars nice, which is why I don't think I'd ever get into like serious drifting, because I feel like you're just always replacing body panels and like.
There's no right or wrong. It's like just really comes down to your personal
exactly
preference.
What you want, but
because like the drift cars, they drift awesome, but you're not setting a, you're giving up time in your lap time, right?
Yeah.
So like I just kind of like err in the middle.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want
It's
one
somewhere
extreme
right in
or the
the
other. I don't
middle,
want a car that grips a lot and like does a lot of like and sets the fastest lap time, because that's the car that's gonna like not be fun to like hoon around.
And I feel like that's going to be like the one time you screw up in a car like that, the car is totaled.
Well, like here, what's a great example? It's like watch modern racing.
Yeah.
There's no movement in the cars. They have those little like 2-paddle steering wheels because there's no reason to like correct the big angle anymore. Like you just can't. Because it's just set up the grip.
Yep.
Like I liked watching like the old like Japanese like racing classes where the tire grip like wasn't that great, and they're like the car's moving. It's in slip angle the whole time, and they're like attacking.
Or like touring car racing from like the 90s.
Yes.
With like the E30 M3s and the 190 Cosworths and like.
Yeah, British touring car series.
Yeah,
like,
oh my God, so exciting.
It's
Good
fun to
racing.
watch,
Yeah.
and it's fun to participate in.
Yeah.
Because it's
are on,
two
like,
parts.
Two
It's
wheels
like
all the time.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's less emphasis on like trying to like dive bomb the other guy into the corner, like where it's like getting like kind of borderline dangerous, but it's like you're balancing. It's you being able to control the car, but also be able to control it and still drive it fast.
Yep.
And you'll see like when I'm hooning, I'm not doing the biggest possible slip angle drips. Like I'm going in with speed.
No, because it's super slow. Yeah.
Right. So it's just like somewhere in between, and I like doing that. The other part is because I don't like changing tires and stuff all the time, right? So like I can slide the car around like that and like preserve the tire life substantially.
And that helps, having a lightweight car too. Like
having a lightweight car.
Yeah.
Well, that's why the like early 2000s, other than a Miata and a Lotus Elise, which like forget that thing. Like
they're just too short wheelbase.
Too short wheelbase. Like
you can
that's
make
that's
them okay, but
it's a go-karty car, but it's not a hoon car by any means.
Yeah.
It's like what else was under 3,000 pounds that was like really fun? I mean, FRS came along like eons
FRS
later.
would be like, we got to get into one of those chassis.
Yeah. Well, my only other real gripe with the S2000, other than the fact that it's like a little bit too fat and heavy for a 2-liter 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated 4-cylinder, right? The S2000 would have been pretty awesome if it was like 2,500 pound stock. I think this car sits around 2,600. I'm going to try to weigh it soon, but I'm pretty sure it's around 2,600 on the dot. But I don't know if that's come across the camera, but that just like
I
completely
doubt
blew
it
my
with our
train
lav
of
mic.
thought.
Yeah.
It's the fact that the S2000 was a convertible only.
Yeah.
I like my Mugen top, or Mugen style carbon top, but I like from a visual standpoint, I think it looks so much better with a solid roof.
I wonder how much you would like a proper, FRS.
Well, the FRS like
with a Honda, with a K swap, with a K24A2.
I think it would be cool. It's the same problem that it's going to be a 2,800 pound car. What's an FRS? 2,750, 2,800.
Yeah, but the K swap does drop some weight.
It needs to be like 2,500 pounds.
Yep.
And like over 200 at the wheels. But like again, that's going to be fun on track.
Yeah.
Borderline on the street, and then like forget it if you compare it to anything modern.
Maybe the 24, I wonder what the torque difference would be, having the 24 compared to like the F20.
I mean, I just think that like if you're going to be at 2,500 pounds, like 300 wheel horsepower would be pretty awesome for a 250 or 2,500 pound car.
Quinn and I always talk about this, hypothetical engine swaps in like cars to try and make like the perfect car. And I think one of the things we keep going back to is I wonder what a VQ swapped RX-8 would be. How that would be. Like it'd be plenty of power, torque.
Yep. A VQ37.
VQ37, yes, so it revs higher.
And all the NA mods and cams. Because they seem to do 365 to 375 wheel with those mods.
And it'd probably fit the chassis, that power level would fit the chassis really well.
Yeah, so that's over 400. But here's the thing, like an RX-8, well, you can get an RX-8 down under 3,000 pounds.
Not with a VQ, probably.
Now, but I was going to say that's probably a heavier engine setup than a rotary.
Yeah, and what's the weight balance going to be, too? Because that's going to add a lot of weight up front.
I mean...
It's still shifted back because it's only 3 cylinders long, but...
Right, but I mean, we know how, what's his name's car drives with the Chevy V6. That motor just doesn't do the car justice because it's just a boring V6. But you could feel the weight.
I'm pretty sure that a VQ is probably lighter than the LFX.
Yeah.
Like I've done research, I've done the searches, but like everybody's got a different answer.
It's a hard thing to gauge because like you probably lose a lot of the shit that comes on the motor.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I was saying is like you could feel the weight difference up front.
Yep.
But the car still drove like an RX-8 for the most part, and that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Willie's out there all the time on track.
Willie B. I was like trying to think of his name.
Every single time I'm there, he's there.
He loves that thing.
Yeah.
And good on him. Yeah. So many people talk shit about that. Like, listen,
dude, he's getting seat time
for a guy's first like sports car.
Yep.
I understand not wanting to dive right into the road thing. And like, here's the thing: the Renesis is not a good track engine. No, it's fine for a street car, but those side seals get too hot.
Yep.
The side exhaust seals get too hot on sustained high RPM. So like, it's a moot point for the track. And like, good on Willie. He put that. Even though I don't like that motor, right? Like, let's put it this way: I would never do the Chevy V6. VQ, yeah, I would do a VQ. But I didn't like that motor at all. But like, good on him. He's out there all the time, and he fucking rips on that thing, and he's getting better and better, and he's having a blast doing it. So like, that was him buying that car, and plus like, he got that car like for a steal compared to what.
And it was built by the company that makes it.
Keisler
right?
did it.
Keisler, yep.
And it has AC.
I didn't know that.
I think he still has AC in it. I don't think I really. Oh, overall,
like amazing difference.
I feel very fortunate and blessed to be able to rip an S2000 that's this well set up. It literally is like this isn't for at least for me, right? You can do more crazy stuff, but like this is a very very dialed in setup S2000, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I think. I don't know if I want to get into this can of worms, but like YouTube and everything like that, and like just. Like, unless it's, like, ridiculous and it's got, 4 rotors and all-wheel drive and 1,200 horsepower, it sucks. Like, I think we're just so immune to, like proper shit that's set up well, that
Yeah.
actually works for extended periods of time on track.
Yeah.
Like, because we're just oversaturated with this, like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like it's just unrealistic expectations of what's cool. Like,
I didn't worry about a thing on track with this car. Mm-hmm. Nothing with the engine. I mean, maybe like a suspension bolt would come off, like if we missed something. Which we did miss one of the shock tower, or there's two shock tower nuts. They were loose when we got up, but that's okay.
yeah, you're breaking it in, and
Yeah.
then you go through and tighten it again.
But anyways, like I didn't worry about anything, and I had a blast on track, and it made me like fall in love with the S2000 again. I wish it was like 100 horsepower faster, but
Well, that's because you got all these bikes that
the motorcycles ruin that. So
Yeah.
yeah. But no, I mean it's the best. This is the best setup S2000 I've ever driven, and I've driven a few S2000s at this point in my life.
It's cool.
So S2000 is the winner. If you guys want to know how this compares now to, so I have Ultimate Modified S2000, Ultimate Modified All Motor Miata. If you guys want to see a video directly comparing the two, let us know. We can put that together, and we could talk to the direct differences. Because when we compared them last time, the S2000 wasn't nearly as set up as it is now. And that's it. Mm-hmm. Check out slipanglemedia.com. Look at Matthew's track photos.
Yeah, I got a bunch of them. No one's bought any.
Go buy his track photos.
They literally go right into the whatever project we're working on. Like we don't use this as income. It's used to fund projects. So if you want to buy your photos, go for it.
And
spend a lot of money on lenses.
And stay tuned for more work on Project Exoset.
Yeah.
And we're going to be working on my FD, getting that thing sorted out and dialed in and back on the road. It's actually right behind the camera. You just can't see it. So
You almost hit my tripod with it.
I know, I'm only like 2 inches away. But almost only counts in, was it hand grenades and horseshoes and hand grenades? There it is.
Yep.
Good night, everybody.